Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being part of this space and this conversation. Natasha, maybe you can spotlight me and Roman. Yeah, Roman, welcome.
And sorry, Roman, I muted you, so you'll have to unmute again. Okay.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you, Lawrence and Natasha and everyone.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So you just released a new book, Beyond Ayahuasca, and I'd love to start there with that title. What does that mean to you? I know a lot of people, obviously, even in the 14 years that I've known you, ayahuasca has gone from kind of a fringe phenomenon that like a few people maybe tried and, weren't really willing to talk about to a very mainstream acceptable thing that isn't particularly fringe anymore, and that's been a bit of a transformation. And so I'd love to hear where the inspiration for Beyond Ayahuasca comes from and what that means to you.
Hmm. Yeah, I've been on this path for over 2 decades and definitely have seen ayahuasca going from a very little known tradition only within certain esoteric circles of long-time yoga practitioners. That's how it was 25 years ago. Pretty much no one knew about it except people who were diving very deep into the spiritual transformation. And then I've seen ayahuasca has become more and more of a household name over time, and now pretty much everyone know it. And of course, with that also comes the loosening of the perspective, right, of the original essence of the tradition and how it was utilized initially by people from the West who already had a very profound foundation or good enough foundation of many years of working with other lineages and traditions around the world. And so then people who are coming to ayahuasca nowadays, often they don't have any spiritual foundation or background. And then I have seen that over time, and of course my book also, I have been writing it for the past 2 decades. I'm not a really fast writer like some people today polish it in one day, but it took me 20 years to write this book. And the book has been a profound path, also a spiritual path for me to connect the dots, to bridge the worlds, the ancestral world where people have lived in such a pristine environment and were so connected with profound human values, and then the world today where there's so much disconnect. And so the book has been also part of this practice for me to bridge the worlds together, to integrate this very ancient wisdom in a way that is relevant in our modern world and situations with our predicaments today. And also, of course, I have seen how people have been seeing ayahuasca as a exotic concert, spiritual show, instead of a path of remembrance and integration into today's world. And that's what my indigenous elders have been continuously introducing me to. So that has been also a great reminder for myself over the years to continue weaving that essence in
Hmm.
today's world, to continue cultivating the deeper integration within these traditions that is often lacking today. So that's basically the reason why I wrote or how I wrote Beyond Ayahuasca. It's not the only reason why. But yeah, I've been writing it as a living rite of passage,
Hmm.
as a reminder, a remembrance, to experience that directly, not just in a conceptual way, but to experience it through a being, through embodiment in
Hmm.
today's world. And so the book has been meant to be that bridge between the ancestral way of thinking and our today's conceptual mind.
What's the relationship between remembrance and evolution?
Well, actually, according to the indigenous wisdom traditions, it's very much correlated. In a way, we are returning into the source of our creative potential, and then the evolution is catalyzed from that.
Hmm. And you talk about ancestral wisdom or enlightened ancestors. Um, can you expand a little bit more on that? And what does that mean, and what's the relevance to modern life as you've seen it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, in terms of the evolution and enlightened ancestors. And so the evolution is propelled by innocence, by the childlike essence. And within the indigenous wisdom traditions that I've been studying with both in the Amazon and in the Andes, that is the greatest wisdom. The
Hmm.
greatest wisdom is to maintain the childlike essence into old age. And of course,
What does that mean though? I want to just double click on that because you use the word innocence and I really love that word. It's been a big source of exploration for me. But can you just define that as far as how you understand
well,
innocence?
for me, it's just this perspective that is not tainted by subjective um, experiences, conditioning, limitations. So it's like the child has this wide open eyes, full of awe and inspiration and creativity and the willingness to engage with situations without the preconceived notions.
Hmm.
And so then, of course, there's been many scientific researches that show how the children are such fast learners because they engage with life playfully. They engage with everything from so many different angles and perspectives. And because of that, the evolution is not linear. We are evolving throughout all of our senses, through the full engagement with the present moment.
Hmm. How do you see hmm, like, right now we're in what may be considered a moment of crisis in the world, where the level of division, the acceleration of how fast things are going, our capacity to keep up with it all. I think for many people, even people, in positions of power, it's overwhelming and it's hard to keep up with, and it's hard to maintain a level of um, intelligence in how to navigate that. How do you see this, you're using the word innocence or the intelligence of that innocence. Like, how does that play into our ability to be with the world as it is and possibly steward it towards some higher possibility?
That's a really great question. I really love Lawrence's questions, and I've grown a lot over the years because, yeah, it's essential to be critical, to have critical thinking and discernment. And yes, it's essential to look at the world today and also at each of our own direct experiences within that world. And so, in my own path, I've witnessed and then I've also confirmed with the indigenous elders how they perceive it, that all the issues of the world today in our society, they stem from the collective wounded innocence of humanity. And so the innocence for the indigenous people, it's something that is essential for us to honor, to cultivate in the world. And we live in a society where the innocence is even seen sometimes as something negative. If I'm innocent, if I'm vulnerable, if I'm tender, then someone can take advantage of me. Somebody can hurt me. I have to put on a certain front so that I can be protected from the sharp edges of the world. And so that basically is pointing to this wounded innocence and what that means, wounded, because what does that really mean? The indigenous people say the innocence is the most indestructible essence in the universe. So how can it be wounded, right? That's a good question.
Hmm.
So actually, The wounded innocence is basically when people don't trust within the capacity of their innocence. And then that same innocence is the seed of the heart. And so I actually made a little children's book with the help of our indigenous Yago elders, and it's called The Seed of the Heart. And it's about the seed of the most sacred tree of the rainforest. It's the lupuna tree. It's Ceiba in Latin. It's also the most sacred tree for the Mayan people here in Mexico, where I am right now. And it's this immense tree. It can grow bigger than the redwoods in California, and like sometimes 40 meters in diameter for thousands of years. But it starts with a small little seed, right? This is the seed of the heart. It's a big seed, actually, of the lupuna tree. But it starts with this seed, and we all have that seed inside of us. It's that seed of innocence. And then we tend to suppress it, we tend to bury it and hide it from the world, not knowing how to breach that innocence with this crazy world that we are living in. And then the seed is patiently waiting for the time when we can actually connect it with all of the elements of life. So every seed that needs the sunshine, I read this is part of the eco-socio-emotional curriculum that we developed with the Yago elders in the rainforest. And so it's introducing the children that the heart can be opened up to the messengers of all the elements of our lives, just like the seed needs to be connected to the sunshine and the rain and the wind and the earth. We all have those elemental centers within our being, and each one of them is related to a particular emotion, to a particular state of being, certain qualities of our lives. And so if we can open that seed of innocence to explore our emotions, to get to know them, not to be running away from them or fighting them, right? So then we start to befriend our shadows, and we find the greatest light within the greatest darkness. We find the greatest power within the deepest weakness of our lives. And so for the indigenous people, that's how it is. It's the tenderness, the innocence, the openness, the sincerity, all of those human qualities that allow us to relate with each other. And I love the Sutra platform that you guys have been cultivating that, and sharing across the World Wide Web. And that is very much related to the ancestral wisdom tradition.
I really love that we've landed on this word innocence, this idea of innocence, because it's such a deep territory, and I think for many people it's not entirely clear what it is, or I think when it comes to any virtue or concept, there's the definition of it that you might read in a dictionary, and then there's the discovery of it for yourself as a lived thing that might be slightly different or more personal than that definition. So for me, an example is the word humility. Like, I had spent many years hearing about this word humility and how transformative it was for people. And it wasn't until I discovered my own definition, which for me, my definition is a lasting awareness of my own subtle arrogance, right? That's a definition that has an embodied wisdom to me, that no matter how much I try, my biases, my perspective, my orientation to something is always there, and it will never not be there. And it would be the supreme arrogance to think so. And just my remembrance of that is my humility, that I'm always in relationship to that side of my being. And so with the word like with like innocence, it's also one of those like profound human virtues that we can say, oh, it's a childlike innocence, or it's letting go of control, or whatever. But I think it's you really have to discover it within yourself for it to take on a certain meaning or value. And so I'm curious, like, how does a person discover their innocence, or really understand, have a more direct relationship with innocence, or even begin that journey into what innocence might mean?
So now we're touching upon the this indigenous ancient mystery initiation schools, right? And that is what my elders also taught me, is my favorite question: what does it all even mean? And yeah, it's an interesting contemplation. I have recently met here in Mexico. I have met this through mutual friends, this amazing individual, and basically, yeah, he kind of gave up on all of the religions and morals and all of the things, and he was really like he became a very stunned atheist. He was very religious for a long time. He became a very stunned atheist, and he just stopped believing in everything. And yet at the same time, I was so inspired by him, because he is, he's living in Mexico City, and he's adopting homeless children from troubled families whose parents have overdosed or who've gone through such crisis. And he wants to go visit with me the center, the Mother Teresa. There is this famous Mother Teresa Center here in Mexico, where you can see people in such horrible conditions, and then they're sharing this relatedness and human warmth and innocence with these people, just without any expectations. And I was so inspired by him, and I told him that for me, someone who is an atheist and doing what he's doing without any motivation or fear or some kind of external control, that to me is greater than 1,000 saints. For me, that's innocence. Because he's doing it from such a pure heart. And he's with all of these kids. He's taking them to football games, and he's calling them mi rey. In Spanish, this like my king. He calls these homeless kids that he adopted, and it was such a beautiful experience for me to witness.
What's and you gotta excuse me here, I really love kind of diving deep into what seems to be really simple ideas, but what's the relationship between innocence and purity?
Well, they are very related to each other, of course. It's that pure intention, the purity of the heart, that spark of the heart, that allows the creative potential to come to its highest expression for the benefit of the greater whole.
I think there's something deep here about who we really understand ourselves to be. Who am I? Am I this separate, organism in this threatening, dangerous world where I have to fend for myself and protect myself? Or is there a different, um, is there a different thing that's the self that isn't what I maybe think it is, isn't what seems the most obvious, and from that, then completely shifting the relationship that you have with identity.
Yeah, this is the founding pillar, I think, of all human cultures. It's the principle of interconnectedness, the reciprocity. And also this shared dream reality that we are having. That's also something that my elders have shared with me, both in the Amazon, and also we can see it in the East, how this is a collective dream that we are co-creating together.
What's
And the more
the
consciously we can co-create it, the better the world becomes.
what's the indigenous perspective on the dream?
The indigenous perspective on the dream is that this is a dream, that we are living in this reality where the images, the forms, the objects that we experience, they're all woven out of this energy of the Great Spirit. And so the Great Spirit is this something that is more real for the indigenous people than this physical body. Because this physical body, it is born and it dies like everything else, but it's that spirit of being a part of a greater whole. It's the spirit of love that continues. Each one of us is contributing to it. whether consciously or unconsciously. I can voluntarily contribute to the greater organism and then be sustained by it, or I can just become a compost and then let other life forms grow out of me that can be more beneficial. But either way, I'm contributing, right? So for the indigenous people, it's much better to be in service voluntarily than becoming compost and still doing that involuntarily.
I find that different lineages, different traditions, they all in many ways kind of land on the same thing and maybe in presenting it in slightly different ways. And I know in your own background, you've combined a number of different traditions in your own practice. Can you speak a little bit about both maybe the importance of honoring what a singular tradition is, and also the value in the integration or the perspective of how all these different lineages or traditions might be an integral part of the same thing.
Yeah, an essential instruction I received from one of my elders early on in my path was that if you jump a lot from one tradition to another without getting to know them deep enough in an embodied way, then you end up having the head the size of a watermelon and the heart the size of a peanut. So yeah, we can have a lot of conceptual baggage and a whole museum of ancient traditions and different spiritual paths, but still use it as spiritual bypassing and intellectualizing about them, than actually applying it into real life and see how I can actually face the adversity in my life with an open heart. How can I learn to be more patient, more tolerant, more kind to my fellow humans around me and different situations that I experience, because then it really is put to the test.
I feel like that's the whole, um, in some ways, that's the whole journey of humility, but that journey from the conceptual understanding, especially as someone who's maybe just initially getting into this work, and I mean, certainly today there's no shortage of access to information. Maybe 100 years ago, you had to go on a pilgrimage to India to get access to certain yogic wisdom. Today, you can get incredible information everywhere, and it's easy to be maybe deluded by that information because there's a profound difference from getting something as a thought and the embodiment, the embodied understanding of that. And I'm curious about just your own journey with that, and how you might steward or support that journey in others, the embodiment of understanding rather than just the conceptual understanding of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the example that I just mentioned about this friend who doesn't believe in anything, he gave up on a kind of dogma and the formal religions, and yet for me, he's much more spiritually advanced than many people I know who for many years are studying different spiritual traditions, and then at the same time their hearts are closed. And yeah, they can maybe regurgitate uh, uh, many different scriptures and all kinds of sayings and philosophies, and yet at the same time, when it comes down to real life situations, their hearts remain closed. So that's what the indigenous people taught me, that these traditions, they're living wisdom traditions. That this wisdom has to be alive within oneself. And it has to be this living relational experience. And that is what provides for evolution and for the creative spark to continue igniting. If I just do it for myself, then it's too little motivation. But then if I can relate, if I can see other beings also experience what I do. And that's what's been so profound for me within the Amazonian lineage when I came to it and I started to hear the stories, the legends of the elders, how humanity has gradually lost its way, and how these traditions originate from enlightened ancestors when love ruled all over the world, when there were no wars, There were no diseases, there were no traditions, no religions. People didn't need to practice anything because it was naturally like that. It was such an inherent state of being that we've all cultivated. And then gradually starting to forget that. And so then all of the religions, all of the spiritual traditions and paths in the world, they were born as basically reminders for future generations to return into a state that is natural, where I don't have to pose or I don't have to do specific things, but I can just abide in a natural way in everyday life. It's not about just a formal meditation practice, right? The real practice happens when we get off the meditation cushion. I think that's how it's referred to in the East. And so, yeah, how can we bring it into our spontaneous, natural way of being? Right? And because that also, of course, in today's world, there is also spiritual fashion and spiritual materialism where I'm going to pretend and act in a certain way. But then what is it really about? I love one of my Tibetan teachers. He says, if you really want to become enlightened, if you want to become a Buddha and you really want to do it, you can do it in 6 months. But if you want to become Tibetan, it may take you many years. Or I mean many lifetimes. Sorry, not many years. And so, yeah, because many people today, they go to Tibetan Buddhism and they're not trying to awaken themselves and really, they are actually trying to become Tibetan. They're learning the Tibetan rituals, they're learning the Tibetan words, they adopt a Tibetan name, and they all have different names. But they basically mean the same thing, right? It's kind of like, I'm more special than others. And so, yeah, how can we actually, and at the same time, I do have a lot of respect and honor for these traditions when they're approached with sincerity, with vulnerability, and really, well, like you said, humility and self-accountability.
I
It's
think
up to each.
like one of the things I've really admired about your work is, is just your effort to preserve the indigenous wisdom tradition. I feel like, obviously there are many different wisdom traditions on this planet, but it does feel like one of the wisdom lineages that's most at risk of being lost is the wisdom of indigenous people around the world. Um, and I wonder if you can just speak a little bit to that, to the importance of that preservation and like why is it important? Like how is it at risk and why is it important?
Well, yeah, these cultures and traditions, they are experiencing a time where the world is no longer so much caring about that essence that they have given many generations and their lives to preserve. And that's something that many of my indigenous friends, they share with me. It's this struggle that they have because these traditions throughout human history, they have been about allowing the human spirit to shine in the face of adversity. And nowadays, they are just becoming spiritual tourist attractions. And our society is based on convenience and comfort. And it's no longer about shining the human spirit in the face of adversity. And it's all about the, the magical pill or covering up the symptoms. And so our society is based on other values. And of course, because of that, the indigenous wisdom traditions, they struggle and they also are trying to survive in this world. And of course, if the tourists or visitors come to them and all they want is a sideshow attraction and a concert and a show, then yeah, that's what they give them. And then gradually they start to dilute their own traditions. And so, yeah, I have many indigenous friends who have shared with me actually that this is at the core of that. In my Yagua elder shared with me in the past how excessive comfort makes us weak. If we are too comfortable, then there is no evolution. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. That's another one.
What's the balance? I mean, that's, I think with a lot of these things, it's easy to turn them into platitudes. There's no shortage of platitudes about what a virtuous life looks like and the importance of balance and whatnot. And then, um, you know, um, I think the reality of life kind of is what it is. And as human beings, we love pleasure, we love comfort, and that's a wonderful thing to experience. And at the same time, there is this balance of kind of, something becoming stagnant, and how do you relate to that, to the reality of that in a lived experience of how do we find the right balance to be in right relationship with life according to indigenous principles?
Well, I mentioned excessive comfort, right? It's like, of course, it's not about torturing oneself. So there has to be.
I think everything's well. Everyone has their own definition of excessive comfort.
Yeah. Well, I do believe in the middle way, that it's not about extremes, and I don't believe in fanaticism. And for me, in this world today that is so plagued by division and fighting and all of those extremes, and that's also lack of humility if we relate it to what you were sharing before. And
Hmm.
I love this. There is a saying, which is a paraphrasing of the words of the historical Buddha, that the only absolute truth is that there is no absolute truth.
Hmm.
And that is the absolute truth for me, because that's what allows the heart to open. Yeah, there is no just one way.
Hmm.
There is not just one way, and I can disagree with people and still have my heart open to them and have compassion. And there is no good and bad within the indigenous traditions either. Right? There is ignorance and wisdom, but ignorance is not bad. Ignorance is a stepping stone to wisdom, or I like the saying that the awareness of ignorance is the seed of wisdom.
Hmm. Hmm. What's the what's the relationship between being in relationship to the mystery and ignorance?
That's a good one. I think ignorance is kind of like when I think I know everything.
Hmm. There is no mystery.
Right.
Because I think
Yeah.
this is at the heart of just my journey has become just this recognition, and I think it is a version of what you just said, that the only absolute truth is there is no absolute truth, is that in some ways anything outside of the mystery is my story. And I get to be in relationship with that, with awareness, as much awareness as I can, but always remembering that the mystery is far beyond anything that I think I know. And that for me is kind of this humility of my arrogance, my thinking, my stories, everything that I think the way the world works, just because I operate in the world and I can't operate in the world without thinking that it works a particular way, which is fine. It's fantastic. But the awareness of that and remaining in relationship to that and in relationship to the underlying mystery, for me personally, changes everything. It's a profound shift in my orientation to life.
Yeah, and just to bring it closer to home, the mystery of the heart,
Mm.
because it's the heart that has to be with it all
Mm.
in very mysterious ways sometimes.
Mm. I think that's such an important note because when you try to handle it mentally, it can be overwhelming, to just analyze the mystery. It's, you really, I mean, for myself, I know I really have to um, bring it down, into the heart. And from there, it's a different kind of navigation.
Very much so.
There's a term you use that I really love, eco-social emotional intelligence. Uh, can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's this interrelatedness of everything, and so that is actually the curriculum, the workshop for the kids, right, that I was mentioning before, where we are introducing how this workshop for the kids works, that we are doing with the Yago elders. We made a little mini documentary about it. But basically, first I read children about the seed of the heart, the seed of innocence, and how essential it is for the heart to get to know all of the emotions in our lives. And so then, through that, the heart, we start to trust more in that innocence. And the heart starts to grow. What is initially this tender sapling can eventually grow into a millennial tree of compassion that supports the entire rainforest. And so then after reading the children's book, then we do this standing Amazonian breathwork. It comes from the, initially learned it from a Witoto elder who was introduced to it by Yanomami tribe in the rainforest, and it's a standing breathwork where we shake and loosen up. We can actually do a minute of that if you would like.
Let's do it in the transition when we wrap up our conversation, and we'll do that. That'll be perfect. Yeah.
Wonderful. So that breathwork allows us to become more acquainted with the different energies in the different places in our body and relate them to the different elements. So then first we read about the elements, and we learn how to connect with all of the energies in our being, how to become more embodied, how to sprout that seed from the earth and through all of the elements that the seed needs in order to grow. It's the water, right? So the water of relatedness. And it's through the water that the seed is finding its way through the dark soil. Have you ever wondered? Because that's something that I do. How does the seed find its way through this very thick layer of dark soil, such a tender little sapling, right? Or a sprout even. And how does it find its way?
Against gravity, no less. Against gravity, no less.
Right. And obviously, it's brute force will not help it in that moment. Right. So it's obviously not with brute force.
And yet, you know, we've all seen the saplings that break through concrete.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's not the brute force, but they do it with. Right? And it's that power of interconnectedness, right? It's the root system and connecting with other little sprouts, and then starting to connect with all of the different pathways, how the water is finding its way down through the earth, right? And the water carries the memory of the sunlight, the higher consciousness. So for the indigenous people, that is the wisdom. They relate it with nature, with very practical things. And so the water of remembrance, right? We start to find our way towards the sunlight, towards our higher purpose, towards that creative spark of life, towards which we blossom.
There's something you also say in the book about, or maybe it's in the mini documentary that you released, that emotions are the messengers of the elements. What does that mean?
Well, basically, the different elements that our being is composed of. We can start with the most essential elements. For the indigenous people, it relates to their cosmology of or the creation story of how this world came to be. And it is the divine union, the union of the unconditional love and the impartial light of consciousness. And so the indigenous people, they relate to it, again, in a very practical way. The earth is the mother. She's constantly carrying us. She's providing for us, supporting us, no matter what. It's that unconditional love. And we all have the capacity for that. We have the seed for it that's been planted in us by our parents, universal parents. And then the sun also is related to as the Father, is that bright light of consciousness that is impartial, that is always illuminating greater and greater depths of unconditional love to infinity and beyond. There is no limit. And so it's the divine union of the consciousness and love, of the heart and the mind. We can see it in other traditions, the wisdom and compassion.
And
But it's that,
where do the emotions come into that?
right, so I'm getting there.
Hmm.
So it's that union that gives birth to all life. And so in each of our lives, we also experience that, where we as a child, we are born completely helpless. Completely helpless. We cannot do even the most basic things on our own. We cannot even pass gas through our system because the smooth muscles of the intestine are not formed yet. We have to be tapped and burped and fed and nourished. So we would not be here if each one of us did not receive the basic care and the basic intelligence. So the basic care and guidance in life, the feminine and the masculine qualities. And then those feminine and masculine qualities, they are expressed in the infinite variety of life experience. So for the indigenous people I mentioned, everything is interconnected. It's the eco-socio-emotional intelligence, where the water is expressing another facet of the Great Mother. It's that discernment, the relatedness, the ability to share the memory of the divine union. And then, of course, those emotions that flow through us. In ancient times, people didn't have words to describe their experiences. When they felt ferocious, they would say, I'm ferocious like a lion. That is, again, connected to a particular emotion, a fiery emotion, we can call it. And that emotion can be related to as a masculine emotion, although there are also feminine expressions of fire, right? In the Cairo lineage, they call it the Mama Nina, Taita Nina, right? It's the mother and father. So we can start seeing how different animals embodied those elements, those emotions, different plants embodied them. That's how also the healing tradition of the Amazonian indigenous people works, is that everything we start to see not as separate, but how it is united through the same elemental energy.
Mm.
And then that energy is flowing through each one of us in each moment, and we need that universal consciousness and the unconditional love to actually get to know all of those elements that can nurture us into our higher potential.
Mm.
So that's, like, in short, that's what it is.
Mm. This feels so profoundly important for our global human condition right now, because it feels like in a lot of ways the majority of people on this planet are disconnected from that awareness, or disconnected from that intelligence. And maybe this speaks to the remembrance that you were talking about, because it's not something that we have to work to create. It's something that is there. We just have to somehow reconnect and remember it. Is that like how you approach it?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
And that's what I loved about these ancient traditions from the moment that I came to them, because they're not about this path of self-improvement
Mm.
or path of personal development, or what do you call it, cleansing our sins, or whatever it can be.
Purification in this yeah, more aggressive
But it's
sense.
a path of realization.
Mm.
It's a path of realizing what has been here all along. We have all of those ingredients in our lives, all of those raw ingredients, all those raw emotions. And then it's a path of actually seeing how all of those raw ingredients, they come together in this perfect 5-star Michelin recipe that can be very delicious and bring ultimate happiness and freedom from limitations.
Mm. What does I mean, there's a slight tangent here, but what does satisfaction mean to you in the context of the experience of life?
Fulfillment, I guess, would be more, I
Mm.
resonate more with that.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, something that ordinary world and experience cannot provide for me. Like, I mean, at least in my own personal experience, that yeah, there's only so many chocolates that I can eat before I get a stomach ache, right? So
Mm.
so what can I do in my life that goes beyond the physical, that can provide this lasting fulfillment,
Mm.
something that continues to develop and grow and be inspired. And again, this is what this ancient wisdom is all about: the reciprocity, interconnectedness. The only true happiness is the one that can be shared with others.
Mm.
Because if I'm just happy for my own sake, it will run out and then somebody will step on my toes sooner or later. But if my happiness is about the happiness of others, then that happiness never ends. If my fulfillment, my greatest fulfillment is seeing other people find their spark and creativity and inspiration, higher purpose, and can also humbly share that for the greater whole, then that is my greatest fulfillment and happiness, and it keeps going.
What's the Indigenous perspective on purpose and the relationship to fulfillment?
Well, purpose and happiness, they're very interrelated terms for the Indigenous people. So without purpose, there is no happiness. There is no true happiness. So there has to be a purpose greater than oneself. And then the happiness, of course, in this also we can go into that too. Of course, what is happiness, right? For the Indigenous people, happiness is not based on pleasure.
Mm.
It's based on the openness of the heart to experience all the ups and downs of life and still remain loving.
I guess it's
So
like a
again,
redefinition of pleasure.
right,
Mm.
yes. And so it's the happiness of limitless open heart.
Mm.
But of course, if I base my happiness on pleasure, this body is wired to feel pain, right? They have all of those nerve receptors and things like that. And then I'm setting myself up. Obviously, pleasure is not going to last. And then if happiness is tied to that, it's not going to last either.
Mm. Mm. There's a term I've heard you use called sacred activism. I feel like in our world today, we're all, if someone is attending a conversation like this, there's a certain level of resonance that invited them into this space. And in some ways, in many ways, I think we're all agents of this level of consciousness or the possibility of transforming the world or somehow shifting the global condition. What does it mean to step into sacred activism?
Mm. Yeah, I've been kind of experimenting with this term because I feel like it's kind of like how to say inflammatory topic, or some kind of word that triggers reactions in people nowadays. And many people are like, well, are so tired of all of this activism that is about division and fighting and protesting and extracting and all of those things. And so I've been contemplating, well, what the sacred activism? Because then, of course, those kind of people, they're also just tend to attack everyone else who are not activists, and how dare you, and you're so insensitive, and you have to be on my side, and if you're not on my side, you're against me. And then and then both sides, they think that, and then I always get end up in trouble because of that, because I do believe in good people everywhere. I'm not about taking sides so much. So I've been contemplating, well, what does sacred activism means for me? And what's been crystallizing more and more is that it comes back down to being. That is for me the greatest activism in the world
Mm.
today, is to learn to just be, not to be something or someone, to identify with some kind of a movement or anything, but just to be. To allow myself to be, not to try to accomplish anything or to run anywhere, but to open my heart to all of it.
Mm.
To allow my heart to be with it all. And then through that to honor the essential human qualities that are the founding pillars of human civilization. The quality of the relatedness, of the heart, of compassion, of discernment. Again, it's not about, of course, just an apathy and just letting things run into the abyss downhill, but actually it's about recognition of ignorance and then encouragement and sharing my own spark, right? And so some people, they may do it with adaptation of homeless children in the worst areas of the world, and they're not making a lot of noise about it. They're just following their heart and their spark of the heart and doing what they know is inspiring them, what allows them to return to that innocence, to the original state of being. And so then for me, that has been my book that I have written, that people have been resonating with it, because it is about healing the wounded innocence of the world. And then all the proceeds from my book, they go to the Yagua tribe children and the elders for this wisdom of the heart, of those essential human qualities and the traditions that honor them, to continue going to the future generations, for those children to become the guardians of humanity in the world to come. And so it is about sharing this, creating more of these relational spaces, and that's why I love Sutra so much for that, because for me this is a branching out, an extension of the ancestral wisdom, so that we can keep honoring that in the world, in this fast-paced moving world. And so then to continue coming back to those essential human qualities. That's how the indigenous people talk about them: the interconnectedness, reciprocity, the mutual relatedness, the willingness to extend our hearts to each other, to see how we can be in the unity of diversity that is the world today. And we can coexist and we can co-create. And we can keep remembering together. So that's basically what sacred activism means to me, is just, to come back and to remember how to be.
There's something, I really love that definition of sacred activism. And I think there's something so profound and subtle that's easy to overlook in this condition of being, because it's easy to kind of mistake being as this passive condition. But I think at the deepest expression of being, there is something that expresses itself through you. A being for me is a fundamentally receptive condition where I am being the expression of my purpose and being receptive to that purpose. And that involves a certain action in the world. And I think at the deepest levels, when your action shifts from, attainment or trying to get somewhere or trying to become something, to this being that's receptive to what's available to and what wants to emerge through you, to your particular kind of cosmic planetary configuration, for what can express itself through you. That gives an entirely different connotation to being, and also to sacred activism. That if you are at that level of expression, at that level of presence and being with what you are, then in a way that's the highest form of activism, the highest form of kind of transformational contribution you can make to the energetic space around you.
Yes. Yes, 100%. That's exactly what I see. There is this practice for the indigenous people. It's called the art of not doing. And that's where the sacred activism has been born out of for me, because that's been so essential to my healing practice. It's a healing art. People often come to me and they tell me, well, I have this problem and I have this issue and this physical or mental condition, and what, I've tried everything and nothing works. And it's often a mentality that people generate. And then, of course, I have to ask them, well, have you tried not doing anything about it?
Have you tried nothing?
And often that's one thing that people have not tried, just to allow themselves to be with it. just to breathe with it, to breathe into it, to open their hearts to it, not to make it wrong, something that they need to push away and run away from.
Mm.
And that's been so instrumental because I came into these traditions in 2001, 24 years ago, and I had this terminal genetic condition at a time, and I also tried everything to get rid of it, and I thought that it was wrong and it was preventing me from leading a normal life. And then my elders, they started guiding me towards being with it.
Mm.
And then actually I discovered that by not being with it, I was not breathing into my belly where my condition was. And then from lack of oxygen, all kinds of lymphatic knots would form and then turn into wounds that in this condition can become terminal because of that. And the wounds never heal. But it was because of psychologically not accepting this part of myself, this sick part of myself, not bringing it into my heart. And so I've been seeing in this sacred activism as an expression of this deeper individual inner healer that we all have within us. To just allow ourselves to open our heart to the world, to hear the cries of the world, to open our hearts to it and to learn to be with it, to awaken that power of compassion. That is not about doing, but about being first and foremost. And so people sometimes ask me, well, does that mean that I don't do anything? And that's not what I mean. No, it's not that I don't do anything, but I don't do it from a place of fear. I don't do it from a place of scarcity. I do it from a place of a heart that is overflowing with compassion, with love, with openness. So for me, that can be a wonderful expression that can change the world.
Mm.
Today, if people learn to do that more and more, and each person is awakening, sharing, and following the calling of their hearts. And so in that way, I don't believe that politics can change the world for the better. Sorry. But I do believe in the critical mass consciousness, that more people awaken on the individual level, and that truly can contribute to the change in society.
Mm. Yeah, I really resonate with that. I mean, I think we live in a world where we have certain concepts about how things have to be and what governance looks like and how we manage the world. And a lot of them are constructed out of our current operating level of consciousness. And it's hard to even imagine what's beyond that, um, because it just seems like this is the way that things are. And I think this is really for me, one of the most interesting territories of how do you reach that critical mass? How do you really shift this collective level of consciousness in a way to invite a fundamentally different way of being with each other that allows us to operate collectively as a, multi-billion person planetary species that I think can look very different than it does right now, than what politics looks like right now or what the economy looks like right now. And I mean, for me, this is the heart of sacred activism, that we're all um, living that expression as best we can in our endeavor, in our commitment to manifest it.
Mm. Yes, yeah,
Mhm.
and in that way we can all share that with each other. And it's not about focusing on the masses, but it's really starting from within,
Mm.
and then doing it one at a time. And
Mm.
so that's what I see that is the most meaningful.
I think the last question I want to ask you here, and then we'll transition to your breathwork practice because I'm really looking forward to doing that with everyone here. But really relates to the personal journey. I know that for myself, having been on this journey now, I think very intentionally on this journey for the last 14 years or so, um, my outward work is has entirely kind of like the purity, the kind of the effectiveness, the I don't know what you want to call it, but you know what the nature of my outward work has been very much correlated to the inner journey, which at times has been very demanding, and you know, very in moments of darkness and just you know absolute confusion or fear on the spiritual path. Um, and there's something about that, you know, I wouldn't have it be any other way because there's something about that has offered me a grounding that I'm deeply grateful for and that continues to unfold in the mystery of this experience. But I would love to hear your words about this relationship between the inner journey and the outer journey as far as how we show up in the world and how we um, live our purpose. Or, you know, I'm sure everyone here has an aspiration to somehow transform the world or be in service of the world.
Mm. Well, in short, if I cannot be with my own suffering,
Mm.
then how can I relate to the suffering of others and open my heart to them?
Mm.
You want me to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean the thing that comes up for me, and I really this has been a deep journey for me in the last few years, is really about embracing and integrating your shadow. You know, really
Mm-hmm.
coming into relationship with your shadow and not being afraid of it. You know, in the sense of like that you can. I feel like the deepest integration is when you recognize that you can trust your shadow.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the greater the shadow, the greater the light. And those are
Mm.
the laws of physics. And then by recognizing and acknowledging the shadow, then the light becomes more apparent as well. And yeah, I see that it's so essential to continue weaving that all together. The Cairo nation in the Andes, I love their cosmology where they have the sacred trinity. And the sacred trinity are the three realms of existence that are essential for each one of us to honor in order to lead healthy lives. So the first is the shadow realm, and that is where all of our unprocessed experiences, suppressed emotions, traumas, fears are located. And so it's essential to honor the shadow realm because it's also where the seeds of the heart sprout from.
Mm.
By facing all of those things in ourselves, then we allow the seeds of our hearts to sprout into the light and to relate to the entire ecosystem in that way. But it's through the shadow realm, by going through difficult experiences oneself and then sharing that with each other, we open our hearts. Often throughout human history, we can see how adversity unites people together.
Mm.
People come together facing a common threat, right? That's a basic way of life. And so then if each one of us can face our shadows within, then we don't have to keep projecting them on the outwards. Carl Jung, he once said that basically the suffering of the world that we're experiencing today is a result of projecting unresolved inner shadows on the outside.
Mhm.
Where this indigenous rites of passage, they are about facing the shadows within in a supportive, safe, intentional container, where I can take responsibility for that and then no longer project it on the outside. How amazing the world would be.
That's the whole journey right there. Roman, thank you. I feel like we could keep going along all these different threads of the wisdom that's emerging in this conversation. I want to make sure we have some time for the audience to contribute some questions. And maybe as a transition, you can lead us through a little bit of that elemental breath work.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So should we do it now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let me just move. I have my temporary equipment set up here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna be half standing. 1 second. All right, so it's good to stand up and allow ourselves to loosen up, to relax, connect to our breath, connect to our body, feel if there's any misalignments, open up to them, bringing fresh, non-judgmental awareness into everything we're experiencing in this moment. Can tune into the ground underneath our sole feet. Can feel the air around us. Just connect to the elemental centers of our being, the earth at the tailbone. You can breathe into the water below the belly button, fire at the solar plexus, air in the center of the chest. And we start to go into ether at the throat, higher creative expression. Then we go into the space of the forehead, and infinity at the top of the head. Through all of the centers we breathe in a very simple way. We inhale through the nose, and as we exhale, we do this soft sound of relief. So we start with the earth. We loosen up the neck, the shoulders, the hips, where tensions and rigidity often are stored. Do it without effort as you're surrendering into the soft embrace of the Mother Earth. Allow yourself to be that soft, tender sprout coming out of the seed. And now we start to reach towards the water, both with the roots and with the tip of the sprout. Long reverberating exhale. Now we bring the fire of determination to push through the dark soil. So we go into the solar plexus and synchronize. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Coming out into the air, breaking through the soil, finally into the fresh air. Continue synchronized. Ha 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 growing higher above the tree lines, so ether growing into a wise tree that supports the ecosystem space just through the nose really fast. No sound here. And reaching infinity, becoming the healer tree, the cross-pollinating and supporting of the world, of the ecosystem, and we make a buzzing sound like a beehive, visualizing shimmering energy coming from the top of the head into the soles of our feet. And now lifting the hands up, inhaling, and bringing the energy all the way back down to roots, connecting to our entire being from the roots all the way to the top of the head. And we can now complete with a little meditation. And so just close your eyes, bringing the focus of the breath to the tips of our noses. Inhale, open the hands. And exhale, bringing them closer together, feeling the energy between the hands, allowing it to become more tangible. And as the energy becomes more and more real, we condense it to a small energy ball and infuse it with our most innocent, pure intentions of the heart, everything that sparks us back into our innermost childlike essence, all the experiences with our friends and loved ones, nature. And we bring it into the level of the forehead, insert it into the forehead. Allow the hands to slide down both sides of the head, down the neck, and stabilize in the center of the chest. And with that, we can dedicate our own heart essence to all beings so that everyone can find the peace, well-being and love in a way that is meaningful, essential and supportive of the greater whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. Yeah, maybe we just arrive back in our collective space here. Thank you, Roman, for that meditation, and thank you all for holding the space for our conversation and this journey. At this moment, we would love to open up our shared space here, and maybe just as a transition into the conversation, I'd love to take about maybe 20 or 30 seconds for everyone here just to take a moment in stillness and reflect on what's one thing that you're taking away from this conversation, and please share in the chat. Let's have a quick check-in in the chat before we open up the space here, and just take a moment to really sit with anything that's present for you, anything that you're taking away from this conversation. I think this could be as valuable for you personally as it might be for all of us here. And reclaiming innocence, sacred activism is just the heart-centered oneness, embodied wisdom that supports the well-being of all, power of innocence, the importance of sound, breath, and movement, critical mass consciousness, a return to innocence. It all starts within. The seed is with us, remembering the heart-centered oneness. Beautiful. The essential foundation, the challenge of simply being. I'm really grateful for this reminder of innocence here that I've seen echoed, because for me, I think that's one of the most powerful things I'm taking away from this conversation as well. Meeting our shadow empowers us. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. If you haven't shared, please share. And otherwise, I would love to open up this conversation to anyone who feels called to share a reflection or ask a question or anything they'd like to share with Roman or us here in this whole space here. And if you'd like to share, please click on the react button and raise your hand like this. All right. Would anyone like to share?
Maybe while people are taking a moment, I just want to, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Roman, thank you. I'm always so in awe of the purity of your heart. Just that purity with which you are in service of this world and humanity and all beings really in this world. So I'm just wanting to appreciate that because I really feel that purity, and I'm just so grateful for all the work that you're doing and your commitment to this path and showing us, also inspiring us with your wisdom and allowing us to learn with you and through you as you walk this path and all its ups and downs. So yeah, just really grateful for this conversation. Thank you, Lorenz and Roman, for this insightful conversation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you so much, Natasha. And I'm grateful that we are all doing our part, and I'm grateful to be able to do my part alongside you. And I feel that that's really where the power is this healing circle that we're creating, where we each share our hearts and inspiration. We keep weaving together, and yeah, I love this. That allows everyone to really participate in this shared dream and continue awakening to the truth together.
And I know I see some people are signing off. Just as a quick note, I will share, we just shared the link to Roman's website here. If anyone here is thinking about or has ever wanted to do a plant medicine retreat in the most authentic context possible in the Sacred Valley of Cusco in Peru, I cannot possibly recommend Roman's work more highly. I know there's a lot of people here who may be curious about ayahuasca, and who you do it with, the space you do it in, really makes a difference. There's a lot of I'm going to use one of Roman's terms here, ayahuasca bartenders out there. Or if you're doing it in an apartment in some city setting, even with the purest intention, it's not like the experience of doing it in the jungle, with somebody as pure and devoted to the path as Roman. It's incredible. So if that's at all in your range of experiences that you are inviting, or curious to explore, please take our most heartfelt recommendation. You can get all the information you need on Roman's website there, paititiinstitute.org. All right. With that being said, Karen, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you, Lorenz and Roman. That was just beautiful. I wanted to ask about dreams, though. I know you touched on this collective dream, and I'm curious from the elders that you are in touch with. I've just had incredible dreams, extraordinary dreams, and I'm wondering if their view is that you're working out something, or are we coming to each other in our dreams? Because I've had dreams where I've healed people and they've actually felt healed. And I'm curious to know if there's something in the ancient wisdom on that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Karen. Yes, one of my elders was an Ashuar elder, and they are considered to be the master dreamers of all the tribes in the rainforest, and so he initiated me into their worldview, and I also facilitate the Ashuar dream work that is bridged with the Jungian psychology. And within the tribal wisdom, basically, again, it comes back to this same essential life force, the same psychic energy that is expressing itself throughout the world, and we are living in this mirror-like universe where everything is mirroring each other in terms of that energy. And so the way that the Ashur people approach it is that first and foremost, it has to do with oneself. So basically, there is this ancient way of greeting each other in the Amazon rainforest, and people would see each other in ancient times. They would say, "Hello, me," to each other. We can see it reflected in other traditions where in the Andes they say Haipaya Kusunchis, we share the highest. In the northern Native American tradition, Ometaku Yaoyasin, all my relations in Tibetan Umani Pamuhung, but it all basically comes back to the shared dream of reality that we are having, where we are all reflections of each other, where I end and the world begins is a very fine line, right? And then where the world ends and I begin is also a very fine line. And so then, in that way, I'm almost there. So in that, all the people in your dreams, they are certain expressions of your own inner facets. And then if that happened in that way, according to the Ashur elders, and also Jung, his view is very parallel to that. And so that means that you have been able to heal that part of yourself that individual represents to you in terms of qualities, characteristics, personality traits. And then by healing that part in yourself, you're also able to extend that to that individual. Now, of course, them healing in reality will actually be a confirming sign from the Great Spirit that is telling you that you have been doing good work within yourself, first and foremost.
Interesting. I knew that from Jungian theory, but I didn't know if that was also consistent. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this one essential Great Spirit that is moving through all of us, that is breathing through all of us. Lawrence shared that in our retreat in the Sacred Valley. We do it in the rainforest now, by the way. But when we were in the Sacred Valley, Lawrence shared it so beautifully in his spoken word. I found it recently how, this spirit is breathing us It's humbling us with its majesty of this great, immense organism that is extending to the farthest stars of the universe.
Thank
So yeah,
you.
thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. So I want to grab a question from the chat and then we'll go to Carmen. So Michelle shares, Roman mentioned the sacred trinity and the first being shadow integration. What are the second and third parts and what lineage is he speaking to?
Yeah, I'm speaking about the Cairo nation. They are the last descendants of the Incas. They live in the Andes, and we have been working with them for many, many years as well. And actually, we intend to extend our initiative with the Yagua tribe children and elders, also eventually to the Cairo nation in the Andes, and then from there to the Himalayas. But for the Kairos, the middle realm of existence, once we arise out of the shadows by getting to know our own shadows, our own imperfections, and all of the different ways that allow us to be humbled and accept ourselves to a greater degree, we can also start to relate to others, not just to their struggles, but also to their qualities and their gifts. And we can start to unite together. I am imperfect by myself, but then I have something to contribute. You have something to contribute. And we start to work together for the common good. And that is the everyday existence. That is the second realm where we need to make sure we have a roof over the head, that we have food to eat on the table, that we can come as community and work and contribute each of our own gifts. And so then through that, we can start to recognize the highest potential of the enlightened ancestors, and that is the higher realm of existence. And so then by meeting and working together, we start to honor each other's gifts and potential. We start to learn from each other. And then we start to actualize that potential within ourselves by witnessing the beauty of the unity within diversity. And so that brings us to the highest evolution, the collective unconscious that stores the greatest treasury of human potential. So that is the view of the Cairo nation. Of course, in many tribes they relate to it. We can see that also being bridged with Jung. Also here where I am right now in Mexico, the Mayans also, I mentioned the Seva tree. It bridges the three realms of existence. So they are also very much corresponding to that. In the Himalayas also, they have the energy centers, and in the Taoist tradition they have the three dantians that also are completely correlated. So it is kind of a universal wisdom that is passed through ancestral traditions in relation to the three realms of existence.
Beautiful. Thank you, Roman. And thank you for the question, Michelle. I was also curious about that. Carmen.
Thank you very much to everybody, and very, very happy to have been here today. So I have a question for Roman, and it has to do with your book. So your children's book gets into emotional and social and spiritual, development, etc. Is that book also available? Did you put the link to that book on the chat as well, or? And what are you doing with that book? Like, meaning, how is it being used? How are you? What children? Where are the children that are buying this book? How is their lives being changed? What is your plan for this book going forward? Where would you like to take it with the children? And what are the ages of the children that this book is directed at? And are you thinking maybe older adolescents, if they're little kids? Doing a book for another version for older teenagers.
And if I could add to that, because there was a question from Anna in the chat as well, if you feel, Roman, if you feel that what you're doing with the children in the Amazon can be shared with kids in the US, like, is this transferable, this work?
All of that, because I'm very interested in, I don't know if in the link to your work, to your website, because I was on your website, I don't know if you have your email there or a way for us to connect with you directly, but I would like to be in touch with you directly about your children's book.
Thank you so much, Carmen. That's very inspiring. Well, right now, only my main adult book is available for the general population, and I'm under contract with Hay House, so they are the ones who are publishing and distributing my book. So I haven't published my children's book yet. What I have done with this book, the children's book, as you can see, it has on the front of it and throughout the book, you can see that it has the Yagua children, the children of the Yagua tribe. And so I made this book for the Yagua tribe first and foremost, and I've donated to them 500 copies. And this is part of the eco-socio-emotional intelligence curriculum that we've developed with their elders, but also this is a way of sustenance for this tribe because they are living in extreme poverty. And when tourists come, when visitors come, they tend to do what is expected of them, and they swarm them with trinkets, and they do some kind of a show dance for them. But then the tourists, they never develop a deeper connection with them. They just see it as another attraction. And it's been very sad for me over the years, and I couldn't bring people to them because of that, because it was just, I felt embarrassed to be contributing to that. And so I've been contemplating for years, how can I truly support them? And of course, all the proceeds from my main book go towards the building of the ancestral school for the tribal children. And the children's book, I donated 500 copies to them, so when visitors come, they can also offer visitors the book. And then the proceeds from the book, they go to support the Children's Emergency Health Fund and Education Fund for the tribe. And so this is also a source of income for them. And also the tourists, the visitors who buy it, they have this deeper emotional connection. They have this book instead of a cheap trinket that they never remember the tribe for. But then the book has a profound message about the tribe, the children, the ecosystem, and it allows the people to stay connected to the tribe and to their essence, to see them as human beings rather than some kind of a show. And so
where are these children, Roman? Where are the children?
They are in the Peruvian Amazon, near the city of Iquitos. If you look at the link Natasha shared in the beginning, there is a link to the mini documentary that we made about these children. And so you can see me sharing the books with the tribe and also reading the same book for the children. And then we're doing this breath work that we've just done with everyone here. We are doing it with the children of the tribe. This is, by the way, a very shortened version of the breath work. This is a very profound modality that we do with adults. Also, it's about 4-hour ceremony that we do. But this children's book right now, I just have it available for the tribe, and also as I'm about to go on tour through the United States on Monday, I will be landing in New York. And throughout my tour, and probably not in New York, but maybe, and then in Portland, in Oregon, in Colorado, and New Mexico, I will be doing this workshop with the kids, and I brought some copies of the book with me, and then I will be sharing it with the kids with this workshop. I developed a workshop for the parents and children based on the eco-socio-emotional intelligence and this book. So we start with reading the book. Then we do the breath work, then we dance with our shadows and emotions in the forms of different forest animals and birds and creatures. We also paint them with the children. And then we complete the workshop by bringing the petal of the different flowers, of the different colors that correspond to different emotions. And we create a mandala of the different flower petals of different colors with the children's emotions, and we offer it to the world so that the world can keep blossoming, something like that.
Well,
so
okay, so Lauren, just one more second, and I'm sorry to abuse my time. This is amazing. So I want to ask you, after the tour in the US, are you going back to Mexico?
No, I'm going back to Peru after that. I
To
have to
Peru.
go back. I have two
Okay.
small children
Very
that
good then.
also
I
need
will.
my
I want to
care.
meet you. Please let me know how I can meet you. I'm right now in Ecuador, and I live in Ecuador, and I'm on my way to the Yucatan Peninsula, where I will be living probably for the rest of my life. And I'm creating a funding mechanism to fund projects such as the one with this children's book that you have. And I'd like to talk to you about getting you money to move that forward.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much, Carmen. And I'm
You're welcome.
inspired to keep weaving it because we also have friends in the Himalayas with a similar project with the children and the elders there in Nepal and also in Africa. And so I would love to continue weaving these efforts and continue bringing it to the children and elders all around the world. And also we have a project with inner city kids in the United States that are going to be taken to those places and are able to spend time with the native kids and the elders. So yeah, there's a lot more to it, but that's the gist.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you, Carmen. Carmen, I sent you his address in the chat if you look there. Um, Brady.
What's up, everybody? This has been great. I'm always blown away at how magically synchronistic the conversations that pop into my field based on where I'm at in my journey. So this has been really, really good to listen to. I have a question. I really like the term wounded innocence. There's no doubt about it. I used to be a pretty innocent child, and my journey of separation kind of took a lot of that away. And I am now on the beautiful path, have been for many years, and I feel like I'm very close to truly finally reclaiming it. And it's taken a lot of work. I guess my question is, I feel as though, in some sense, for lack of a better term, I'm on the cusp of kind of dreaming myself into existence, like the pure, true essence of who I am, love embodied without all of the samskaras, which you will. And I've been doing a lot of inner child work lately. I probably cried for 5 hours yesterday just going through old pictures of myself as a kid. And it's very powerful, it's very therapeutic. But every time I feel like I'm about to truly let go, like that deep soul cry, where the heart finally truly opens. Right now, it seems to be somewhat superficial, although it's incredibly beautiful, given that I've genuinely thought I was a robot for a while. I'm just wondering if you have any insight or recommendations for someone who truly feels like they're on the cusp of finally opening up their full heart, but just can't quite seem to get there. And I don't know if it's my mind or my ego that gets in the way, but yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. And thank you again, because this has been incredible.
Thank you so much for your resonance, Brady. Well, of course, the sacred plant medicines can catalyze that, right? If you already have that intention and you have done the foundational work, then they can really help to overcome some of those emotional barriers that the ego may still hold. And also the breath work. So what I just shared was a small tiny glimpse, and then we work with the bridging of the Amazonian breath work that I shared a glimpse of right now. And then there's a deeper facet of it that comes from the Dzogchen Bompo, the Himalayan tradition of shamanism that existed before Buddhism in Tibet. And so there is another modality that is very complementary. We do them together. We first do the standing breath work and then we go into a deeper breath. And that breath can also be very cathartic, and yet holding that essential innocence as a focal point throughout the practice, which is the difference between some of the modern breathwork modalities that I've seen, like the holotropic breathwork, where it's really about just letting the emotions go and screaming and kicking. But within the indigenous breathwork traditions, there is the mindfulness element that I find very meaningful, where you can actually maintain yourself as a channel rather than getting lost in the emotions that are being experienced and then getting swept away by them.
Okay, I will take that into account on my next breath work. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you very much.
Brady. Evie?
Yeah, thank you very much for this beautiful, intimate space of sharing and for this very inspiring conversation. My question is about is a bit related to what you shared, which I find very beautiful about this sacred trinity and levels of existence and evolutionary path. And as I hear, the plant medicines are very very much part of the life of these indigenous communities. Meanwhile, if some people go to a retreat or go to a ceremony, they are in their individual journeys and then they go back to their daily life, and it feels like it's a bit of an individualistic path. And my question is whether you have experience of the medicine being part of communities as a tool for growing and healing together in non-indigenous environment, or do you see it creating communities? I just feel very fascinated how this intelligence find its way, from the jungle to even cities. And I'm wondering if it is really able to connect people to come back to this path that you described in these 3 steps, or does it just stay on an individual level? I don't know if it is clear.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you, Evie. Yes, absolutely. The sacred plant medicines have always been part of the ancestral social technologies. They have been not the main focus or the main point of them, but they have always been integral to those ancient social technologies because, again, the individual and collective are very interwoven within these traditions. So by facing one's own individual shadows, then I'm able to relate to others, and then when we are able to do it together in a ceremony, then that creates a very profound bond between people that is not superficial. And those are the ancient technologies, and we've been experiencing it with Lawrence together, how we come. I don't do individual ceremonies, for example, in my own work, only part of a greater retreat, minimum 10 days we do. And so people come together as complete strangers.
Look at the chat. Sorry.
And within a day of coming into the retreat, people have a ceremony, and suddenly people feel very closely related and very profound emotional bonding with each other because of being able to come into an intentional space where we are each facing our own individual shadows. We open the hearts to each other in such a profound way. And at the same time, it's not just the plant medicines. I always say that the healing circle of individuals is more powerful than any plant medicine. Our collective intentions that we bring together are more powerful than any medicine in the world. And so then everything can support that, but nothing can substitute it. And so then, of course, for the indigenous people, it's not just the plant medicines that keeps them together, but it's coming together and being honest with each other and relating and not being afraid of conflict and learning how to do it in a meaningful way. And so then having many different ways how they engage through the dream work, through the collective harvest cycles, through the planting cycles. So there are many different ceremonies in the indigenous people's lives that are not only about this visionary sacred plant medicine experiences. And that's why I also wrote the book Beyond Ayahuasca, because the cosmologies, the myth creation stories, the cultural context, the flora, the fauna, the food that the people eat within the culture, they're all such essential integral elements within the culture that is important for us to recognize. And then weave into our own modern existence. And so again, this is what I'm so impressed with and honored by Lawrence and Natasha's work, is to continue to extend that same essence of being, right? That's really what it comes down to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carmen, do you want to
I
share?
just have a really quick question. I placed it on the chat a while ago, and it was when you said, Roman, there's more than one way. There's just not. There's not only one way. There's more than one way. And I put in the chat. I wonder what you mean by more than one way. What way are you referring to? If you could say something about that.
Well, I believe that different people have their own way to find God, to come to their higher self, however you want to call it. So there is not just one way to do it. And I cannot come to my own soul, to the essence of who I am, by just imitating and following blindly in someone else's footsteps. Right? It's for each one of us to find a unique way to come back to our innocence. No one can do it for us, and we each have to work through the labyrinth of our own individual life experience.
Thank you, Roman. And I see, let's take one more share. Your name is not displayed here, but you're wearing a red checkered shirt and you're outside. If you'd like to unmute, please share.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Yoshi. Such a great presentation. What you were just talking about, I wanted to talk for you to talk about the primacy of nature. I see that is how we know how to be being. By nature is being, and this profound separation from that. I see this shadow of the culture is nature. And that's the shadow that, so just speak of that, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, the primal force, the fierce innocence I related. So from wounded innocence, first we heal the innocence, and then we allow the innocence to be fierce innocence that is empowered, that is able to channel all of those instinctual forces in our lives that initially can be intimidating, threatening, or overwhelming. We learn to actually awaken the heart with those forces and sublimate them to our highest potential. And so then suddenly we don't have to continue engaging with those forces in their raw way. I love there's this saying by Nietzsche that a human being is a bridge between animal and God and everything in between. And without embracing and accepting, getting to know the animal part of us, we can never reach God. But also we don't want to get stuck there, right?
Oh, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our conversation here today. Roman, I'm just so grateful to have you in my life, so grateful to be able to host conversations like this, so grateful to everyone for joining us. Natasha, do you want to share any final words?
Yes, thank you. I know there's been some questions in the chat, Roman, about your US tour and how to find you, how to participate in your retreats. I don't know if you want to say a few words about that. We will send an email out after this call with the recording and also share links to the book and to ways that you can support the work of Paititi Institute. But Roman, do you want to just say a few words about how people can find you and if there's opportunity to connect with you while you are on tour in the US?
Yes, definitely. I'm still figuring out the tour. I'm kind of, I have some things that I do well and, some things not so much, and organizing the tour is one of them. So I'm going to be in New York, and I have some events that I'm going to be announcing soon. And then also the same thing with Oregon, Colorado, and New Mexico. I'm right now talking to friends who are able to organize everything there and help me with that. So I'll definitely be announcing that, and potentially some bookstores. I'm going to be doing a talk in a beautiful bookstore here in Mexico City on Sunday, and we'll probably be sharing that. We have a retreat coming up in the rainforest, in the Amazon rainforest, in December over New Year's. So it starts on December 21st and finishes on January 5th. It's a 16 day retreat. It's going to be with our Yagua elder, and it's going to be a really beautiful time with our Yagua tribe, and we're going to move forward with our initiative. We're almost done building their ancestral school for their children. And yeah, just stay tuned with us on social media. You can find us on the site. We'll be updating the events. You can also send us an email, and I would love to be in touch with you. Also, we are planning to continue weaving with the Sutra, and also that's something that I have a lot to learn about, and I'm so grateful for Lawrence and Natasha to be able to do this in such an amazing way. So we're also going to be weaving different ways to bridge the ancestral wisdom with the greater worldwide web of people that are intentional and then keep making the world a better place. So yeah, you'll find more information on our site. You can reach out. There is an email on the site, info@paititi-institute.org. So yeah, I would love to hear from you, and let's keep weaving together.
Thank you so much, Roman. Thank you so much for just the purity with which you do the work that you do. Thank you for all of you for joining us today. Yes, you will find more information. You can subscribe to newsletter announcements also on the website here, paititiinstitute.org. And yeah, maybe just to say goodbye, you can unmute yourself and say goodbye in your language of choice into the space. And we look forward to seeing you either in the online space on Sutra or in future conversations. Thank you so much.
Adios.
Bye.
Adios.
Much love.
Bye.
You do same. Adios. Say goodbye.
Gracias, Roma. Gracias.
Gracias. Gracias.
Gracias, Ram.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye
much.
bye.
Bye.
Spasiba.
Tusen tack.
Oh, Ellie.
Tusen tack.
Beautiful.
Ciao,
Thank you so
grazie.
much.
Farewell.
Gracias. That was amazing. I loved it. Sutra. Yay. Ready for
Thanks,
the
Carmen.
next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Спасибо.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Спасибо.
Mhm.